Thank you for coming today's webinar of hosted by Mobile and also Japan Expert Team. I am the founder of Japan Expert Team, Aki Watanabe, and also my partner company, Mobile CEO, Mr. Declan さん。Declan さん、よろしくお願いします。
Yoroshiku. Thank you, Aki-san, for the invite to today's webinar. It's always a pleasure. You're in San Francisco and I'm in Tokyo. We're kind of in the wrong countries, but
We're switching the location
we
actually.
are. Yeah, we are. I'm from Ireland originally, and as you mentioned in your short introduction, I work with a telecoms company called Mobal that provides SIMs and eSIMs to anybody visiting Japan, whether that's as a tourist, to study, or to work.
Yeah, it's really interesting company because only a few company offering eSIM or SIM card allows Japanese phone number to be used. And
Thank you for the promotion, Aki-san. Yes, and just to avoid becoming a commercial, to mention that even though we are a company, we're wholly owned by a charity, 100% owned by a charity. So all of our profits, everything is donated to charity, which is our main thing, really. And Aki-san, before we kick off, we have a participant, of course, who previously told us of their experience living in Japan. So we'll hopefully get some contribution from our participant from Ecuador as well. But to mention, Aki-san, you are joining us in San Francisco. You're not there on pleasure. You're there because of your other task, the other job that you do, which is very, very important and equally as important as Japan expert. Would you like to share what you're doing in America right now?
Oh, sure, I'd love to. Like, please don't be surprised, but I'm I'm living in USA right now. Actually, man, let me explain my brief background. Maybe it's confusing, even my age, I guess. I know I look like 20 years old for Western people, but I was born in 1994, so I'm now 31 years old. And then, briefly, I'm the founder of Japan Expert Team, Moving and Adapting to Japan program since 2023. But before that, before 2019, I was working as human resource consultant in Tokyo. But I decided to quit my job to finding out how to live without lying to my heart. So I'm keep on traveling outside Japan last 6 years. And then it led to the USA for one of my life work, wheelchair para fencing, and also blind fencing coaching. Maybe it's better to show photo to make sure you can understand. It's kind of unique. So now I'm in the States to helping people with disability as a fencing coach. This is San Francisco. This is Austin. It's for blind fencers. And this is another blind fencing. So I'm going to explain what we are doing at the Japan expert team later, but briefly, I'm Aki Watanabe, founder of Japan expert team. Besides my life work, helping people with disability, physically or blind or visually impaired people. But of course, I'm ready to share a lot of visa options or what to do or what to expect when you move to Japan later. But thank you for listening and thank you for coming this webinar. So now I
So
want to
just to clarify,
yes,
Aki-san, you help people move to Japan and you help blind people and people who are disabled with fencing all over the world. And when we first met, we were both in Europe 3 years ago. You were in Hungary, I was
yes,
in Poland. I was planning a return trip to Japan. I was applying for a work visa at that time to return. and we were in the same time zone, almost in the same area. And ended up going to Japan, and you ended up going to the United States. So, an interesting couple of years.
Thank you. Yeah, like I decided like now in the States, a lot of clubs starting blind fencing. And then they need some help, or I also wanted to learn how to take care of blind people more properly. So I came to USA 3 months ago, keep on traveling in the States to visit a lot of fencing clubs, including para fencing and then blind fencing. And also now I'm coming back to Europe later, but I cannot wait to going back to Europe, but I am enjoying my life in USA. Thank you for listening, kind of.
Well, it's a wonderful, wonderful work you do. Aki-san, if it's okay, I'll share some of my slides
Oh yes, please,
just
please.
to share my life in Tokyo at the moment, if I can. I might have it on the wrong slide, but oops, apologies.
Oh, don't worry about it.
We'll fix that. There
Now
we
I
go, from
can
the
see
beginning.
PowerPoint, but not slideshow. Yes, it's coming.
So this is a zoomed up image of what I can see from the room where I am right now. And remember, right now I'm working remotely, which is a totally new phenomenon that has come into being post-pandemic. And even in Japan, in our office, we usually, well, my generation tend to go to the office on a daily basis, but the younger recruits they're coming to the office once a week. So even in Japan, remote working is a big thing. In fact, many jobs are completely 100% remote. So that opens up a lot of opportunities for foreign people moving to Japan and potentially not necessarily living in cities like Tokyo or Osaka. So I live on the seventh floor, and I have to tell you, I moved to Japan with my family 3 years ago now. And that was just after Japan had reopened after COVID. And getting an apartment in Japan for a family, it was always difficult and it hasn't changed. If I was a single man and or a student or I could have easily, because times have changed, I could have got a share house accommodation. And when I first came to Japan, I was 19. I'm not going to tell you what age I am now, Aki-san. I'm not as open as you. Nah, I'm kidding. I'm a good 2 decades ahead of you. But when I first came to Japan when I was 19, share houses existed. I remember knowing about a place called Sakura House, but the quality of accommodation wasn't great. It was usually for people who were on a transient tourist type visa who were passing through Japan and just needed a room. They didn't care about the quality or the cleanliness. These days, share houses have taken off. And some of the properties, and I've actually visited some of these properties, they're luxurious. They're absolutely wonderful. And they're in the cities, they're in the outskirts, and they're extremely affordable. I even know I recently learned of another type of accommodation, which I don't know the name in Japanese, but it's an it's an old folks home. In other words, it's a retirement home almost, but it's based on apartment blocks, and they allow younger people to stay with the older residents to help with the shopping and to help carrying things, and the younger people stay at a reduced rent. So Japan has a lot more options for accommodation than it previously did. But let me tell you how we found this house, this apartment, and we're renting here in Tokyo. When we came here 3 years ago, I knew it was going to be difficult to get an apartment. I knew that. So I already had some online research completed, and I had a particular real estate agent in mind. And I told them while I was living in Poland this is what we need. I understood the Japanese layout, the floor layout. So we wanted a 2 LDK, which is I think you understand that, Aki-san. It's a two
Yes.
bedroom living, dining, kitchen. We needed a room for our kid, so that it was 2 LDK. I was told 2 LDKs are very difficult, they go very fast. So we prepared by getting a hotel accommodation for the first 2 weeks of our time in Japan. Now, I moved in November of 2023, and at that time, even on Booking.com, 80% of the properties were already booked.
Hmm.
So Tokyo's busy. I think everywhere in Japan is busy with the tourist boom. So we went to a suburban area of Tokyo called Akabane. It's not a famous area, it's not a tourist area. And we managed to get a family room in a business hotel for a reasonable price for 7 days. But we couldn't get the weekend uh, dates because it was already booked out. So we stayed in Tokyo weekdays, moved to Yokohama for the weekends, came back to Tokyo for the weekdays. In the meantime, I was running around viewing properties. Now, the truth is, there was only about two properties that were actually 2 LDK that met the requirements. And the one that we wanted, nobody mentioned this view in this picture. The one that we wanted was this one, but we couldn't actually see it in advance. So they showed us photos. We had to trust the real estate agent. And I remember my wife saying, is this person somebody you can trust? Are these pictures real? Because we had to sign our contract before we saw the apartment itself. And I said, Japan is trustworthy. Everything's good. And the guy said, here's the key. You're moving in tomorrow, but you have to pay everything now, literally now. So we were going so slow, and then suddenly we had to run really fast and pay A, B, and C because they were giving us the key. So that's one thing I will say when you move to Japan. Prepare for a sprint. There will be a time when everything goes kind of, oh, I don't know what's happening. It's all happening so slowly. And then boom, you're in the system. Go. And the moment you have an address, of course, is the moment your life begins officially because with an address, you can get the address on your residence card. Once you have a residence card, you can open a bank account and your life is now officially started. So these are the things you need to consider first. Accommodation, residence card, banking, and of course, in my case, I was blessed because I had a SIM card from Mobal. I had an eSIM with a Japanese mobile phone number, so that part was absolutely okay, and I had that from before I arrived in Japan. So yeah, the as I say in this slide, the real estate agent never mentioned a view of Mount Fuji. So we were like, "Is that Mount Fuji out the window?" And he was like, "Yeah, I think it is. This is a west-facing property." Almost accidentally.
Mm.
So I live today, and this is my third year, in a residential area in the Itabashi ward of Tokyo near a river. And it seems like, when I look out the window, I am in a concrete jungle. But when I walk outside, within 5 minutes, I'm surrounded by this type of nature. Right now, it's early January. It's supposed to be the coldest and the wettest month in Tokyo, but it's lovely. It's a crisp, lovely day. And how we were that's the weather we experienced over the new year as well. I can, if I want to, jump on a bicycle, follow the river path, and go into Saitama and see farmers planting rice. It's that easy. So I never feel too hemmed in by the city. And of course, in Tokyo, Japan, seasons come and go. And I think that's one of the biggest shockers. Japan is so hot in the summertime. You don't sleep. And then it's so cold in the winter. Um, this is our third year, and we didn't have initially an air conditioning unit in the main room, only in the bedrooms. But this year we decided we're not doing another winter without an air conditioning unit. And that was another interesting experience because when you change anything in your rental apartment in Japan, you need to apply officially to the management company to ask for permission. So I had to email them and say, look, I'm going to install an air conditioning unit in my apartment. Is that okay? And they said, yes, if you don't make any holes in the wall. Now, that's impossible. So I sent them a photograph of the wall and the outside, where the outside unit needs to be located, and said, I need to make a hole. And they eventually replied, yeah, okay, that's fine. As long as you fix the holes when you leave. That's another side of Japan that I think people need to know about. Sometimes the bureaucracy is a little bit silly. When you install when you install an air conditioning unit, you need to make a hole if one doesn't exist already. That's how it works. So they eventually understood my plight and allowed the air conditioning unit, which I'm now fully appreciative of because it's providing me heat on this cold day. It's 2 degrees outside. Um, this picture is of Roppongi. the main entertainment district in Tokyo, but you can see how beautiful they keep the gardens there. And in the background, you can actually see the building of one of the TV companies. So if you look very carefully, you'll see the Japanese animation character Doraemon. You
Yes.
look very carefully between the branches. So what to consider when moving to Japan? Is it okay that Aki-san if I continue like this, or do you want to?
Sure. Please
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
going. It's really interesting to hear your personal story, so no reason to stop you.
Well, I guess, and this is actually more your area, but when you move to Japan, one of the first things you need to consider is what visa you plan to arrive in Japan on.
Mhm.
I have been to Japan on tourist visas. As an Irish national, I can stay in Japan up to 90 days without the requirement for a visa. I get that visa on arrival. If I have a good reason to extend that 90-day visa, it is possible to extend for another 90 days, but I would have to apply to the immigration department and give them, as I say, a valid reason. I've done that in the past. So I've been to Japan on a tourist visa. I've been to Japan on a cultural activities visa. I brought over a music band from Ireland to Japan years ago. I've been to Japan on a student visa. I've been to Japan on a working visa sponsored by my employer, and I'm currently in Japan sponsored by my employer, if you like, the company I work for, on what is called an intra-company transfer visa. In other words, I've been transferred from the overseas department to the Japanese department, and that's the visa I'm on. When I applied, it took me about 3 months to complete the process, paperwork, visiting the Japanese embassy overseas, to get what is called the COE, the Certificate of Eligibility. Once you have your COE, that's almost your stamp of approval from the overseas Japanese embassy that allows you to go to Japan within a certain period of time. All you have to do is show that COE in your passport, and when you arrive in the airport in let's say Tokyo or Osaka or wherever, the immigration official will stamp it and will give you a residence card if you're moving to Japan to live. Obviously, this webinar focuses mainly on people who are planning to be in Japan mid to long term. If it's a tourist visit you're planning, a simple tourist visa will suffice. Um, but when you move to Japan, you've a lot to consider. And one of the things that I suppose, in many ways, that I wished I had done earlier or knew about was a very simple thing. I use a phone every day. I'm like everybody else. I have an iPhone, and in my case, before I moved to Japan, I had an active Apple Music subscription. A very simple thing. I think it might have come with the phone, and I was paying every month a little fee. So I wanted to change my region setting on arrival in Japan to Japan so that I could download some very important apps for services here. I wasn't able to do it. Apple told me you cannot change your region setting when you have an active subscription in another country. Oh, immediately I regretted not knowing this earlier. So I eventually contacted Apple support and managed to fix it, no problem. But it delayed me having internet in my house by a couple of days. You can imagine how my son felt about that. So having an iPhone was also, by the way, a huge advantage because I don't know, Aki-san, if you're very familiar with IC cards, the Japanese Suica and Passmo, the transit cards. If you have an iPhone, you simply open your Apple wallet and you add a Japanese transit card to your phone. And this
Mhm.
is your method of riding the transportation, the trains. You go beep, beep, beep. You never have to queue up or buy a ticket again in your life. Everything is done via I'll show it to you, via this card. In my
Mhm.
case, it's a Passmo. I'm
Oh
not sure
yeah.
how clear. If you're an Android user, unfortunately, overseas Android users cannot use this particular function, so they'll have to get a physical IC card, which is just
Mhm.
the plastic version of it. My son uses that, and it's absolutely fine as well. Although I do enjoy the auto top up. You can top up automatically from your iPhone. So having an iPhone has been a bit of an advantage, to be honest, on arrival. So I know that that's controversial. I'm not suggesting everybody goes out and buys an iPhone, but it helped in my case. So then I arrived in Japan. I had my phone number for, and by the way, a phone number, just in case it's not clear to everybody, I very rarely use my phone for voice calls. Very rarely. But a phone number in Japan is used for a lot more than making phone calls. It's a method of confirming your identity by SMS. So having a phone number allows you to also receive text, send and receive text messages. I needed a phone number when I registered for electricity in this apartment I'm living in, when I registered for gas, and when I registered with the local water board. Now, these things are called utilities in English, but in Japanese English, they're called lifeline services. And I
Mm,
wanted to mention how they work a little bit because I moved into this apartment, as I said, 3 years ago in a hurry. And I said to the guy, the real estate agent, will I have water, electricity, and gas? He said, no, but we'll phone them and we'll get this fixed. He phoned. I had electricity straight away. The gas guy came on a Sunday morning and the water was connected remotely. And I had my first invoice on Monday morning from the electricity company by SMS. They
mm,
sent a small charge to see if I was credit worthy, if I had money, I guess, and I was able to pay that at the convenience store. So having a phone number meant I had light, heat, and I could cook. And when you move to Japan, also, you have to remember if you're renting like we did, that apartments are empty. They don't come fully furnished. There are, and I think Aki-san, you know a company that will rent you everything, your furniture, your
yeah.
sheets, your forks, your knives, your pots, your pans. I wasn't aware of that option. So I spent my first months
Mhm,
ordering online from IKEA. I actually visited IKEA, the Japanese version of IKEA, which is Nitori. And I
mhm,
absolutely, by the way, I want to almost promote Nitori because I ordered beds and sofas from IKEA. They
uh-huh,
arrived and they were left at the doorway. I spent my
oh,
nights with a 100 yen toolkit. I got a
mhm,
screwdriver from the 100 yen shop making furniture. But with Nitori, it's a Japanese company. They came into the house in their slippers, very professional. They put the furniture together. They took away the rubbish, and
mhm.
they just left, and everything was done. And I just wished I'd used Nitori for everything, for my washing machine or everything. So Nitori were a dream to work with. And having a phone number meant I could also download the Nitori app. And as a result, because I ordered everything through the app, I earned points. And I got myself a free coffee machine from the points. So using apps in Japan is such a big thing these days to get discounts and do it from day one. Sorry,
Mm.
Aki-san, I've gone off on a slight tangent, but help bring me back.
No, thank you for sharing such a useful information, you know. I'm native Japanese, so sometimes I don't know what I don't know yet. So thank you for sharing your insight as an expat in Japan, Declan-san.
You're more than welcome. I can share more. I have more slides, but I don't want to steal the limelight.
Okay, so you already mentioned a little bit about your visa in the past, but just in case, we also prepared for today's session, kind of webinar, to share other options, and latest options. So I hope you will gain some new information about visa. So
Okay,
I pick some visa you can apply for from outside of Japan. First one is digital nomad visa. Second
let me
one,
stop sharing. Let me stop sharing because I think I was sharing. You need to share your screen, Aki-san.
thank you so much. So I think now everything's sharing, right? I hope.
Um, may I ask if everybody can see? I can see your screen.
Nice. I believe it's okay. Okay. So first one is digital nomad visa. Second one is startup visa. Third one is job hunting visa. The first one, digital nomad visa, is for the person who are working remotely, earning income from outside Japan. You can stay up to 6 months if you have digital nomad visa, but you will meet some requirement. First one is income requirement. Minimum annual income of 10 million yen. It's about 65,000 US dollar. And also you need to have proper insurance. Private health insurance covering at least 10 million Japanese yen. But the one good advantage is if you have digital nomad visa, you can bring your spouse and children to Japan. So you can have a good time with your family up to 6 months. But unfortunately, you cannot work. Your partner also, your spouse, your children cannot do part-time job in Japan if you have digital nomad visa. This is cons. But pros is you can have a good time with family, long term, 6 months. So if you're interested, please check it out. And second one is startup visa for entrepreneurs planning to establish a business in Japan. Once your business plan approved, you can stay in Japan minimum 6 months in the beginning, and then up to 2 years, you can live in Japan as a preparation time to start up your business. So what you need to start your business is this one. So startup visa is preparation period to acquire business manager visa later. For having business manager visa and starting business, your requirement is investment of at least 30 million Japanese yen. It's about 197,000 US dollar. And then you will need to have physical office space in Japan. Home office not accepted. And also you need to hire at least one full-time employee who is a Japanese national or has appropriate residency status to work at a full-time job. I know it's not easy. That's why Japanese government offering you guys startup visa. If your business plan, this is one of the document for the startup visa. Startup preparation activity plan. Briefly, let me share. Reason to start business and future prospects. And also qualification, work experiences, special skills, plans for starting the business. And then types of industry, product and service to be offered. You don't need to have right answer right now, but at least you need to fill in the most of the blank, like business overview. And also some timeline at the time of application, status of startup preparation activity. So you need to have some information to convince Japanese government you are really serious of having a starting a job. Oh, hi, Declan-san. Would you have anything?
Aki-san, I have a question if it's okay to ask. Is there an age limit on the startup visa? Is there, for example, the digital nomad visa has nothing, okay?
So this is also no age limit startup visa. So far, I'd say.
No, so far, okay, I understand. It's just Japan, for example, does not have a retirement visa. And I know that a lot of people in the past webinars have expressed interest in coming to Japan after they had retired from work overseas. And I just wondered if this is a startup visa could be an opportunity for people who have already business experience who might start something.
Yes, exactly. That's why
Mhm.
we highly recommend applying for startup visa in the beginning because you can prepare these documents from outside of Japan. You can apply from overseas, and then you can see how how much you are ready to move to Japan, kind of. I'm sure
Mm,
sometimes your application would be declined by Japanese government, but you can have some feedbacks also why your business plan was declined. After
mhm.
that, after you gain understandings why you failed to apply for the startup visa, you can start look for the new information or acquire new qualification or certification or new work experiences. So thinking about your business plan and submit the application and seeing what you're lacking of or what you need to gain more understandings, then everything gonna be more smooth if you think moving to Japan next 3, 5 years.
Are you aware of any of the reasons why an application for a startup visa would be rejected?
So some of the cases is just aiming for like, do you know IKEA business? IKEA is like a abandoned house. So a lot of international people looking for job opportunity to create IKEA business or some making minpaku is like hotel, Japanese
Mhm.
style hoteling. This kind of industry is already packed. Too many
Mhm.
competitors. So Japanese government sees, oh, this is a typical business plan already full of candidates or competitors. They declined it.
Okay, that's interesting because there are a lot of Akiya companies and there are a lot of foreign people in Japan who have purchased properties to rent them out to other tourists in what you mentioned, the Minpaku model.
hmm Yeah, so now like last 5 years, Minpaku, IKEA is getting popular. So it's better to think about how to contribute society
Hmm.
first.
Hmm. Have
And
you
if you have
any
any
examples
questions,
of success stories? What type of business would be successful?
like IT business, IT
Hmm.
and also like business relationship creation from overseas and Japan. If you want to
Hmm.
do just business in Japanese industry or Japanese market, sometimes it's really difficult to convince the Japanese government to,
Hmm.
you need to make a profit for Japanese society also,
That
right?
makes sense. So if you
Yeah.
are a person overseas planning to apply for a startup visa, your skills are international based. That's where you're strong. So if you come to Japan, they would like you to be the bridge between Japan and possibly the host country and not focus on domestic business.
Yes, exactly. They
Mm,
expect you to engage not only Japanese market, but also outside of Japan, like more
hmm.
bridges sometimes. So if you want to convince Japanese government, it's better to know what your strength is in your
Hmm.
country or industry, and then doing researches of same industry in Japan.
How long is the application period?
I've heard the shortest is half year,
Okay.
but
So plan
including
well in advance.
yeah, like beginning of 3 months, they check their application and then you got the response positively, then you are going to start for the visa application. So, and then a few months later, you will receive the visa and then move into Japan. So additionally six
Hmm.
months if everything moves smoothly.
Yes.
And the important part is you need to you need to pick one of the prefecture to establish your own business. Like Tokyo, Kanagawa, Kyoto, Osaka, Kobe, Fukuoka. Moreover, I know
Hmm.
one of the company offering you to build the business anywhere in Japan. One company I know. So if you're really serious about building own business, not these prefectures, please contact Japan expert team. But I highly recommend to pick one prefecture from here because they know the local business also, so they can give you more insights, local insights. Okay. So next one is job hunting visa. A lot of people coming to Japan are mostly going to school, language school. But if you picked proper language school, you can allow to stay up to 6 months to look for work right after you graduated, after you graduate your language school. Not every language school offering job hunting visa, but if you find a good Japanese language education institution fits these 6 criteria, you don't need to leave Japan for job hunting. Just stay in Japan right
So
after.
if the Japanese language school is recognized by immigration as a good school, you get a 6 month extension when you're finished your studies for looking to look for a job.
Yes,
Very useful.
very useful.
Aki-san, is this different than the J-Find visa? The J-Find visa
Mhm.
is a new visa type that is available to people who graduate from what is referred to as the top 100 universities of the world. They
Yeah.
get a job hunting visa for 6 months as well.
Mhm. Yeah, this is different. So J find visa is for the person who graduated from top 100 ranking university or college in the last 5 years.
Hmm.
So when you graduate the university at age 28 until 33, you can apply for a J find visa. But once you turn 34, like 6 years later from graduation,
Hmm.
you cannot apply for J-Find visa anymore. But this
And this one has no age limit.
no age limit. You just need to
Okay.
graduate like proper language, Japanese language institution, or if you have graduated or completed university or graduated school overseas, not in the 100 ranking.
Hmm.
You
Can I
might
ask another question? Do you know, for example, there are lots of Japanese language schools now everywhere. They're in Tokyo, but they're also in Akita. There's a wonderful school called the Akita Inaka School.
Mhm.
Do you know what percentage or on average, how many of these Japanese language schools are recognized for the purpose of a job hunting visa?
I'd say 10%.
10%. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you really need to contact them directly. That's why
Hmm.
we're here, Japan expert team, helping which look like every client having own preferences to live, where to live. Not only to
Mm.
sometimes they prefer countryside, especially countryside area. They need to find a good language school if they want to apply for job hunting visa. So once they became our client, we are going to send an email to most of the language school in the prefecture.
And can I ask another question? Is the job category specified, or is any job full-time, any job part-time considered a job? What
Yes,
is the
any jobs for full-time
any
job.
job? Any
Only
full-time
any
job.
job,
Okay.
yes.
If you remember in a previous webinar last year, we had several people who, again, they were retirees or planning to retire soon,
Yeah.
and some of them had no connection with Japan prior.
Hmm.
So one of the options was to get a student visa to
Hmm.
study Japanese near a property they purchased, for
Hmm.
example. And this is interesting because many of those people we spoke to planned to buy a property to live several months of the year in Japan. Maybe
Mhm.
not forever, but some were considering that option. But if they got a full-time job, then the visa would change. They wouldn't have to leave the country. The visa would become a work visa, correct?
Yes.
Hmm.
まあ、so that's why I also ね、shared this option at the last webinar.
Yes. Well, the
うん、
reason I'm asking so many questions is because in my experience, when I came to Japan on a student visa, I always had to return home to before I came back to Japan on a working visa.
うん、
I came here as an exchange student and I went back to graduate. And after graduation, I had to come to Japan. I had to have a visa to come back to Japan. So many people are in a hurry to get back, and it's not so easy. So that option of having a job hunting visa without having to leave the country is a huge improvement.
うん。Yes, luckily Japanese government opened their eye already to accept a
Mm.
lot of international people who wish to have full-time job. So if you don't have any question, this is my three biggest recommendation for visa you can apply for from outside of Japan. Is okay? Can I keep going? Declan-san, no question?
No, 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 no. Please go ahead.
Okay. So from now on, I would like to share what to prepare for moving to Japan to dealing with friendship boundary or language difficulty or culture differences. So these six issues are main things most international people giving up on their wish settling down in Japan. These six are main reasons why people giving up settling down in Japan. Friendship boundaries, language difficulties, culture differences, job hunting issue including career things, and the housing search for international people, and the hidden local information. Hidden local information means only 2% of whole population in Japan is international people. So even though the information for expats in Japan, they are still written in Japanese. Unfortunately, the international people living in Japan who are not good at Japanese, they cannot find the essential information or they miss the opportunity. Then after that, figured out, oh, I missed the information. Oh my gosh, I cannot deal with this not English friendly society. I met these kind of people during my travel last 6 years who used to live in Japan but had given up on the wish. That's why I started Japan Expert Team, moving and adapting to Japan program. Briefly, I'm helping like visa investigation, like we already shared today, and visa application support, job hunting support, business networking, housing search, and also adapting to Japan program, culture studies based language coaching, and then networking and fieldwork arrangement. It sounds weird, but I'm gonna explain. So firstly, I want you to learn about how to deal with subconscious discrimination, friendship boundary, culture differences through our culture studies program. And then after you understanding what you need to deal with, we starting helping you language barrier by creating your tailored study material, language studies, and then finding Japanese community near your location. If you're living in, for example, Los Angeles, LA, I can find Japanese community in LA or local communities Japanese member belongs to. So you can try to visit the community even before moving to Japan to try what you learn from culture studies. And also we are arranging language partner. Of course, we are going to have one-on-one language session, but it's better to have another person you can try what you've learned. and then keep on having one-on-one language session and also improving your first impression towards Japanese after you had experiences of visiting community or having session with language partner. Then creating your communication style, self-promotion skills in Japanese, create harmony with Japanese, expand your comfort zone. It requires to fit into new culture. So even before moving to Japan, mentally, physically, logically, you can be ready for moving and adapting to Japan. Well, sorry, this is our brief service explanation, but today we picked some information from culture studies program. So please let me know if you have any question. You can type on the chat or you can ask question directly later in the end of the session. We still have Q&A session. So, and so Declan-san, please ask me any question if you have any question later. Okay, so let me share the one with the reality, what Japanese people feeling about international people. Unfortunately, most of the Japanese people had never had international experiences before because due to the number of international people living in Japan. So this is what you will face after moving to Japan. Firstly, friendship boundary. To become a best friend, you need to deal with 4 friendship boundary. First one is becoming social friend from stranger. So social friend means like classmates or neighbors, like you just greeting, good morning, or how are you, but not engage in strong conversation. And second boundary is to become a friend. Our definition of friend is like you're only gathering to having fun, like going some event or going to the movie or some party. So just and the friend is a person who just having fun, not having strong exchange like sarcasm or like sharing a background. Only surface, just being fun. They are gathering. And then third boundary is to become a close friend. Close friend means you are like teasing each other, increase sarcasm. But unfortunately, Japanese having like, how can I say, Japanese society is really competitive society. They are always worried about being judged as a loser of society. So they don't want to show up their honest feeling or trauma or negative feeling towards you sometimes. They are really scared of being hated also. So they are, exchange strong sarcasm sometimes, but not like Western style. And the last part is to become best friend from close friend. Best friend means they can share their trauma, they can cry in front of you, and if something negative happens, they are calling to you to ask some advice. I believe the third boundary is not exist in Western world so far, where my traveling last 6 years. But this is most international staff struggle with. But today I'm here to support to break through first boundary at least. And also ideally second also.
Aki-san, it does depend on, for example, how you come to Japan. I came to Japan first as a student, an exchange student. So I met fellow students, Japanese students. And those people who I became friends with when I was over 30 years ago as a student are still my best friends today. We didn't have a complicated relationship, as in we weren't work friends first. We were all students,
Mhm.
and we've all gone different ways, but we've all kept in contact with each other, and we have a small circle of close friends. And I would say, if you're a student, you break through those barriers fast because work is different. It's more complicated. You have other responsibilities. It's more difficult in work to break down the barriers. So it does depend when you come to Japan and how you come to Japan.
Ah, yes, exactly. Like later, I'm going to explain about age hierarchy. If you're a student, you'll always get along with someone almost same age or a bit younger than you. But in Japan, we cannot become a friend with someone even 1 year older than us. So work culture is more like social hierarchy with age hierarchy. That's why Japanese worker doesn't want to become even friends sometimes. They are
Hmm.
worried about becoming a friend. But if you're a student, they don't care about, social hierarchy at least, and also age hierarchy if you're a classmate. This is why people coming to study having better life. Well, social life, I'd say,
Hmm.
or mental connection, I'd say, while living in Japan. Most of my clients is aged between 30 to 50 who wish to have new chapter in their lives where they have been dreaming of. So I'm helping, more hard style, but this is also
Hmm.
nice to see how they can challenging themselves and also expand their comfort zone and make their wish real. But thank you for sharing your personal story, Declan-san. Okay, so let's go how to deal with first boundary. So these are the proper actions, a part of proper actions I picked from our Moving and Adapting to Japan program. First one is do not judge age by appearance. Second, creating soft atmosphere. Third, topics to avoid. Four, proper Japanese studies. Five, creating a personal portfolio. Okay, let's go one by one. Do not judge age by appearances. So I already mentioned that age hierarchy is taken very serious in Japan. I cannot be friends with someone even 1 year older than me. I need to respect what they are thinking, what they are feeling, what they are telling to us. I know in Western culture, you can be friends with any ages if you find, if you both you find something you can respect on each other. Age doesn't matter if you find respect each other. But in Japan, it doesn't apply. So most of Japanese who most Japanese have never had international communication I mentioned because from my personal experiences also. The first time I had international, like I'd say English communication was when I was 19 years old. One Belgian student coming to my university for studying. Before that, all my classmates, teachers, my families are from Japan. So I had never communicated with foreigner. So I also didn't know what I didn't know. So I thought the Belgian student also behaves like my standard, Japanese standard. So unfortunately, people living in Japan are expecting you to behave like Japanese because this is standard for them. So if you feel Japanese looks like 20 years old like me, please think about plus 10 years. And then if you communicate to me like I'm the uni student or underestimating my age or my expertise, we would feel, okay, you are disrespecting to me. So I cannot be friend with you sometimes. So in the beginning of the conversation, try to figure out how old they are. Of course, you shouldn't ask lady directly about the question. Try to find your way to communicate. or just being polite in the beginning. So don't underestimate their age by appearance. Do not mistake about communication. And second one is creating a soft atmosphere. So we have some statement to become a best ideal Japanese. 道を尋ねられる人になりなさい。Become a person whom people ask for direction. It requires like good grooming, like clothes, or calm expression, or relaxed attitude. I have some recommendation for relaxed attitude, focusing on shoulder. Like especially in America, I'm in America right now. On the street, I've seen a lot of people having big posture, like making space between your arms and bodies, like left side of photo, walking like that, shoulder bit up, raising up, and then making space, walking like big. But if you're having this posture, Japanese people feel you have unstable self-confidence. Because if you have inner peace, you don't need to show yourself bigger than you know who you are. If you have inner peace, accept others, accept who you are also. You don't need to behave big to give others pressure. So arms following gravity is one of the things you can focusing on to become the person.
The picture on the left reminds me of a phenomenon in Japan, maybe just Tokyo. There is the guy, maybe
Uh-huh.
more than one actually, called Butsukari Otoko, the man who bumps into people. And it has happened to me. He missed me, but there was one guy on the subway recently, and he was walking down the carriage like this, and he got his shoulder and rammed it into everybody and
Mm.
walked off. And of course, Japanese people are so polite that they just look back and say nothing and probably feel sorry for that person. But he definitely gave off that impression of unstable self-confidence. That's what the
Yeah.
picture on the left reminds me of.
Yeah, especially you are a foreigner, international people. So it might be your natural posture, but just be aware of how Japanese people prefer you to behave. So try to fit into the culture, please. Japanese too skinny. And then let's go topics to avoid. So for example, family topics. Or negative topics like karoshi, like lonely death, or tsunami, like big waves from ocean after earthquake, and more. Now, firstly, let's go on the family topics. One of the common question Western people asking to each other is, do you have siblings? Like they are asking siblings or like family relationship as a second or third question sometimes. But unfortunately in Japan, we have high divorce rate. And also, parenting is different from Western style, more giving pressure to children to achieve something since they were 3, 5, 6 years old. Sometimes they don't have good relationship with parents or siblings sometimes. So please avoid asking personal question in the beginning of the conversation. I know it's kind of weird, but in Japan, we are only focusing on individual person, not about family relationship. More personality, I say. Personality, what they like, or what their hobby is. So just focusing on positive and also private, not private, more individualistic topics, I'd say, not family oriented. And the second one is negative topics like karoshi, tsunami, or hikikomori that drives us to withdraw from society, or kodokushi, lonely death. I've realized that a lot of Western TV show or TV program having documentary about Japanese society, of negative side of Japanese society. And I've met a lot of people who are interested in Japanese culture, bring these topics on the table in the first or second conversation because they are curious about. Of course, I'm not criticizing them, but this is really happening in Japan. And there are also the people who are involved in this incident. So when you come into Japan, first, second conversation, I don't recommend to bring negative topics of Japanese society because the person you are going to talk with might have the negative experiences. So just in case, focusing on positive topics in the beginning, and once you become like close friend, I can say, close best friend, you can ask these kind of topics on the table. I mean, after you build trust relationship with a person, you can ask the question. But not from the beginning, please. And then fourth, proper Japanese studies. So this is how local Japanese judges your level of Japanese. Even though you have N1, JLPT N1 level, if you're speaking like written Japanese, like from manga or like anime or TV drama, they would feel you are beginner level of Japanese. Like if I speak in English like Shakespeare, like novel, people would feel, oh, okay, you're studying really hard, really difficult vocabulary, but you're speaking like you can speak like Shakespeare, okay, sounds weird. Then they're underestimate your level of Japanese. So just be speaking spoken Japanese. And then if you have incorrect pitch accent, you will judge as intermediate level in their first impression. For example, this is common mistakes. Not mistakes, but a common phrase. Konnichiwa. Hello in Japanese. So left side is a proper pitch accent, native pitch accent, I'd say, of hello. Red dots representing your volume, and the black line representing the pitch accent. So let me try. Konnichiwa, konnichiwa is proper and also native Japanese. But if you're speaking like konnichiwa, konnichiwa,
You
people
sound
will
like a
feel.
foreigner.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be judged as intermediate or beginner level. And this is my favorite one. If you have proper pitch accent of boiled egg, ゆで卵, ゆで卵. If you have wrong pitch accent, ゆで卵, ゆで卵. It sounds like boiled grandchild. Of course, native Japanese speaker understand how difficult this is to learn the proper pitch accent, and they are not criticizing you in person, but they are laughing in their heart. So if you already have like JLPT, N4, and N3 level, it's time to realize and focusing on to catch correct pitch accent. And then one of the best way of learning pitch accent is watching TED Talk, TED Talk Japan. When you do a presentation in public, they are always focusing on proper Japanese and also having strong expression. So you can easily to catch their correct pitch accent and also grammar and what kind of phrases is appropriate in public. Of course, like Duolingo is amazing. Watching YouTube anime is amazing. But if you're really serious about adapting to Japan, I highly recommend to check TED Talk. Or if you really want to having us, we can make some Japanese study material with correct pitch accent. So just let us know. And then last one is having personal portfolio for the first impression. Before moving to Japan, we are kind of recommend you to make personal portfolio to be not misunderstood by local Japanese who are not good at English. For example, you can write down why I want to move to Japan, what I like about Japan, wish to experience in Japan, brief background, and also your value, hobbies, contact information, and some photos about your life. If you meet some Japanese are not good at English, 100% sure they will struggle picking the topics, what they want to talk with you. But if you have this personal portfolio, they can find some interest about you and they can feel relieved being with you also. So if you are not also good at Japanese, I highly recommend to make personal portfolio. And sometimes this is helpful for job hunting also. So
Just to mention, Aki-san, you have already said that only 3% of Japan's population is made up of foreign residents, which means the majority of people have never had experience of making a friend or reaching out to a non-Japanese national. So this idea of a personal portfolio really resonates with me because I know even when you're applying for a visa, the immigration authorities ask you to write a resume. Now they give you a format which is from the last century. You write your primary school and you don't give details that are actually of use. But Japanese people are, you live on an island, you're naturally curious and you're very curious about other cultures because you're an island, I guess, as well. And something like this would break down barriers in very quick time because Japanese people are also shy and they want to know all this stuff. They want to know everything that's written here about this particular Danish gentleman. But they don't have the communication skills to get there. So you had four levels of friendship, four doors, four steps. This is a quick way of breaking down those steps and breaking down those doors. I know myself, I'm a talker. I like to speak.
Mhm.
So I tend to give everybody who I meet for the first time some background. I'm Irish, what it means, what's Ireland like, and but I can speak Japanese, so of course that's a benefit in itself. But this is easily overlooked. I think people can think, it's okay to turn up in Japan and say, "Hi, I'm Mike. How are you?" It doesn't work like that here.
No.
You need to go slower or use this.
Yes, it's more slower or using this. Yes, so this is my last recommendation, to break through the friendship boundary first. Yes, so if you're focusing on these five, don't judge age by appearance to avoid, being disrespectful to native Japanese, creating soft atmosphere to make people feeling comfortable being with you. Topics to avoid to be disliked by Japanese by communication mistakes. Proper Japanese studies to not underestimate your Japanese level and creating your personal portfolio to break through. The first friendship boundary at least you can deal with how first step towards adapting to Japan, we believe. But this is just a part of proper action. So if you're really interested in more details or support, please contact us by booking a free counseling from the orange QR code. Later, I'm going to show also, or if you want to know more, we have like a free gift for you today. We have one ebook. We have three ebooks, but one what to prepare for moving to Japan. If you scan the QR code, you will find our Google Drive PDF of the what to prepare for moving to Japan for free. So I respect your effort to coming here in your busy schedule. So we would like to share something good for you. Okay. So thank you for listening. Would you have anything you want to talk, Declan-san? More?
Um, I know that we have somebody in the webinar who previously lived in Japan, and I was thinking, what has changed a lot since, my previous time in Japan? And one of the things that really Japan has changed is the whole area of finance, payment.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when I go to the shops today, what do I use to pay? I use QR code payment apps that are linked to my card or my bank account, and I earn points. It's a very unusual way of spending money. But if I go to 7-Eleven, in fact, my wife has just gone to 7-Eleven to get me coffee, she'll be paying by QR code and we'll be getting a point or 2 points or whatever. And eventually that will become a discount from a future shopping experience. But that made me think about banking because when I first came to Japan, banking was simple. You went to the bank that spoke English, and it seemed like the bank manager had authority to say yes or no, here's your bank account. These days, because of money laundering and all kinds of restrictions and regulations, to open a bank account in Japan, they only allow foreign residents who have lived in Japan a minimum of 6 months
Mm-hmm.
to open a Japanese bank account unless you meet strict criteria. So the way around this is not to use a bank, but to use the post office because the post office in Japan, they run a bank called Japan Post Bank, and they're a public service, so they have to open an account for you. And it was the easiest bank account to open. And I managed to do that within as soon as I got my residence card with an address. Easy. The other thing I wanted to mention is the world of Japanese apps is quite amazing and it's a little bit of a mystery to non-Japanese speakers. For example, I'm sure you've heard of the e-commerce app or website Mercari, the Japanese Mercari. Now, Mercari is not something I knew from my previous times, and I didn't really know what Mercari did. And it's only recently that I've discovered that it's like a buy and sell online marketplace. And I was looking for a book for a Christmas present for my son, an unusual English language book by a science fiction writer called Terry Pratchett. And I couldn't find it on Amazon, couldn't find it. I went on to Mercari, I found it, so I opened an account, and my son saw what I was doing. And so it's a buy and sell marketplace. So we sold a couple of things, we bought a couple of things, and in the app, the money that you earn from sales can be transferred to in within the app, Bitcoin or other crypto wallets. You can use it to pay in convenience stores, and the whole system is driven by AI. So, for example, when I took a picture of a book I wanted to sell for my son,
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to earn some money. The app recognized the writer, the book, the quality, and almost suggested the price. And it's just another marketplace that I think foreigners would overlook because we don't know it. And everything's for sale there. Used clothing, furniture, cars, pets, everything. And I think wow, I've been here this long and I never used Mercari. I'm not saying that it's wonderful. I'm just
Mhm.
saying that it's an example of the many, many services that exist, which I never knew about. And unfortunately, the app itself is in Japanese, but the website can be in English. So I've seen a comment here. One of our participants was in Japan, cash was king. Cash will never disappear in Japan, but it's not king anymore. QR code payment apps are definitely king, but you'll always need cash when you go outside of the big cities. Some places only accept cash. For example, over the New Year, I climbed a local mountain. I went around Mount Fuji and climbed a mountain called Oyama-san. And Oyama-san has a very retro road leading up to the mountain. And when I say retro, it's small shops that have been there for decades selling the same products. Everything is in cash. They had every food and drink you wanted and you needed, but if you didn't have cash, you'd be thirsty going up the mountain. So there are times, for example, when you go to an event in a park, the food trucks will only accept cash, but more and more and more, this is how you pay. I don't know if you can see
Mm,
that. That's the
yes.
Rakuten Pay. You just tap, that's linked to my payment card. You tap that, and every 100 yen you spend, you get 1 point. That 1 point is 1 yen. I use several of these services. I link them to my Amazon Japan account for discounts, and it's another area where I think when you come to Japan first, it's too complicated. But the quicker you dip your feet into that area, the better. You can earn points in the same ways people use Starbucks to earn stars through their app, which we have in Japan as well. So that's a whole new section. I think foreigners need a Japanese friend to get them started because you need a phone number. You need a phone number to register for all these apps, of course. Not plugging mobile again, but you definitely need a Japanese mobile phone number, not just a data plan if you plan to live in Japan. End of party political broadcast by mobile.
Thank you for sharing your expertise. I'm already left Japan 6 years ago, so sometimes you know the better idea to survive in Japan.
Yeah. I can also see a comment about the various visa types. I mean, we
Mhm.
have to recognize that the Japanese Immigration Agency are making really strong efforts to develop new visas. The digital nomad visa came about because of lobbying in Japan. People said we need to get more quality foreign visitors, and the digital nomad visa was something they requested, businesses requested during the pandemic. And I know and I know that the Akisan, and I have to be very careful what I say here. I know that you're not allowed to work in Japan under a digital nomad visa. You must have overseas income. But I do know from anecdotally, from people who have the visa, that quite often the work that they're doing in Japan is for a Japanese company who are paying them overseas. So you can almost get clients as a digital nomad in Japan, but they cannot pay you in Japan. In other words, you probably have an overseas bank account, a PayPal account, a Wise account, or some form of overseas account, perhaps with a Japanese yen wallet. And you can get clients who will pay you overseas to be a software developer or a programmer, and you can be living in Japan on a digital nomad visa, and that is entirely legal because you're not employed in Japan. You might derive some of your income from a Japanese source. And I'm not saying good or bad, I just know that that happens. And I also know that in Japan, there's a huge shortage of IT graduates. So
Mhm.
if you come to Japan on a digital nomad visa or similar, and you're working here and you're putting yourself in the shop window, in other words, you might find that it leads to full-time employment as well. So I think there will be new ways of escaping visas and transitioning into other visas in the future as well.
Yes. And also, if you want to know more information, Visa, not just coming for the free counseling, or please download our books, ebooks. You can learn more aspects, I guess. So you said your option for medium or long-term plan. Yes. Oh, 7-Eleven. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean another thing is just morning coffee. This isn't the morning, obviously it's the afternoon, but convenience stores are no longer the cheap and cheerful shop. They're They do everything. I do my banking in the convenience store. I ship my goods from Mercari to anonymous buyers via 7-Eleven or Lawson or similar convenience stores. And of course, I get good coffee there as well.
Yes. Life in Japan is much cheaper compared to Ireland, I guess.
Yeah, and tasty. I'll just confirm that. Good.
Okay. So if you don't have any question, I just gonna stop the recording.
Sure.
But if you have any question, participants, please keep asking, or you can show up who you are, But
Yeah.
now I wanna say thank you for coming today, And also it was our pleasure to having you and sharing our knowledge. So we will keep having different events. We are sure. So please keep in touch, or if you have any questions, please contact us anytime. And also, Declan-san, do you want to say something before we closing the session?
No, just to thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll do it again, Aki-san, for sure. We're getting good at this. We're getting used to each other. But for the moment, I think turn off the recording, and if there's any questions, we can take them then off record. Oh, I have to leave the call. Okay.
Okay, so have a lovely life until we see us again, or see you in
Absolutely.
Japan.
And I hope to meet you one day in Japan.
Yes, ありがとうございました。